of Directors. And we're going to be considering contracts and rulemaking actions. No other business will be discussed or no other actions will be taken at this meeting. So just to kind of note that as we get started here. And then we will go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. All right. Welcome, everybody. We're excited and ready to get started. Amy, will you go ahead and do a roll call of the members?
Yes, Madam Co-Chair, I sure will. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and do roll call. Mr. Ahrens.
I'm here.
Mr. Brown. Mr. Coyne, and I believe, Madam Co-Chair, Mr. Coyne is excused.
Yes.
Ms. DeVore.
Here.
Ms. Johnson.
She said here in the chat window.
Okay. Mr. Kenyon.
I am here.
Mr. Kinsler. Mr. Klein.
I'm here.
Mr. Law.
I'm here.
Ms. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Thayer.
Present.
And Ms. Tomasi.
I'm here, Amy.
Okay, Madam Co-Chair, you do have quorum of the board.
Oh, perfect. All right, great. We're going to go ahead and get started today with the Services Standing Committee, and John is out, but Ms. Thayer has so graciously been willing to step up in his place. So I will go ahead and turn it over to her.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're going to start, am I muted? No, we're going to start with the Services Committee. I believe that Brandon is on the phone to walk us through that, or is on the Zoom. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Madam Committee Chair or interim committee chair, I guess. I don't know.
So I think the first thing we have is the contract with Advanced Commercial Providers, LDT of Taiwan, for continued operation of the Wyoming Trades Office for BFY 2024. So Brandon.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Committee Chair. As you're all aware, we've had the Taiwan Trade Office for the last 4 years, I believe, and have used contractor in Taiwan, Advanced Commercial Provider. Chester Chu is the director of our office and owns the company, Advanced Commercial Provider. Ron Goldberg and he have negotiated what I think is a significantly improved scope of work, reflecting where we are now, reflecting the work that's been done at that office over the last several years, as well as what we hope to be able to get done over the next couple of years. And so I believe Ron is also on. He's about 10 feet that way. I can hear him behind me. And so I believe Ron is on and he can kind of go down through the different pieces of that contract now.
All right, thank you, Brandon and Madam Committee Chair. I believe Chester Chu has joined us from his office in Taipei, and thank you for joining us, Chester. I think it's 11:07 p.m. his time. So, but quickly, a little background info, as Brandon mentioned, this is we're in year 4 of the office. It was the vision, some legislators and the former governor, and we got it launched in September 2018. And I'm getting some feedback anyway, so trying to get through this. Anyway, the funding for the next biennium starting July 1 came up during the legislative session in February and March, and the legislature realizes this is a long-term investment. And they again had a repeat funding allocation of $400,000 for the coming biennium. So that's where we started. We had some momentum. We were heavily agriculture focused the first couple of years. Then COVID hit, and we've had an opportunity to really look at what we've learned, what was working, where we need to make improvements. And Chester will go through a slide deck here in a second, but I wanted to say we've really focused on not only agriculture, and we've got some distillers and value-added oats production company, but we really focused this next round in adding other industries to expand to, including but not limited to technology, energy solutions. The world and the opportunities for energy and energy solutions in Wyoming as a leading energy producer, not only nationally, but globally, have really changed since this office opened in 4 years ago. So we're excited about potential opportunities there, manufacturing, chemicals, and bioscience. The services, and you'll see this in attachment A in the board meeting materials, high-level overview is company promotion that Chester's office provides, market intelligence, investment attraction, trade show, and trade mission administration. So we've got some steps we're working on with expanding those industries we're targeting. We are using opportunities to connect Chester virtually with industry groups, private business. He met recently with the co-chairs of the legislature's select committee on blockchain, financial technology, and digital innovation to really understand the legislation that Wyoming's been working on, particularly in the blockchain industry, and meeting with local economic developers, really trying to provide as much self-support capacity to Chester's office that he can to really reach out and look at those targeted industries and know who he can work with and connect with. We're also working with the Small Business Development Center to provide the virtual export training, whether it's introduction to export, test the waters, see if a business is interested, or maybe a next level for people who have tested those waters, but are looking to really find a market in Taiwan and the Asia Pacific Rim. So a lot of exciting things I think we've learned from and how we can help going forward in the next biennium. And with that, Chester, I'll let you walk through the slide deck we've prepared, and then we can take any questions if that's okay, Madam Committee Chair. Go ahead, Chester. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ron, and good morning, I think, to the committee, service committees. Let me quickly review current terms and the terms next term I'm going to do in the trade office. So I recap some topic here. First, foreign direct investment and business alignment. In the current terms, we did so-called the individual approach, one company by one company and by one company. And for the next term, I'm thinking to do the so-called the group approach. For example, Ron just mentioned for blockchain player, I will not approach one by one. I may formulate a cluster. So all the way from miner and cybersecurity and digital wallet and NFT, and then formulate a group to go to Wyoming to set up their office and develop their business, and after create more job opportunities for Wyoming, all the way from UW student and the regular employee. So as to the CCUS as well, I'll explain a little bit detail later. And hydrogen economics, I try to create some opportunity for Wyoming hydrogen player, and the name EPC, I'll explain a little bit later. So advanced manufacturer for Casper manufacturer as well. And bioscience and medical, we are working with the company named Cell Drop, spin-off from UW. So all this is different from a so-called a group approach. So hopefully that would be the other different way to promote Wyoming business. Next. From that top view there for the the current terms we are doing the agriculture driven. So later next term, I would more focus not only agriculture but more technology, energy solution, manufacture, and bioscience as well. Also, there's an interesting company called the company from Cody. Later he will come doing the testimony as well. And that's for ESL English program. That's a very interesting company, as well. Next one.
That one's Illusion Technology.
Illusion Technology, yeah. So therefore, to enhance the connection and partnership in Taiwan, so the next turn I would focus from governmental organization and to the direct business related organization as well. But for the current turn, it's very important. I mean, in Asia, to build up good relationship with governmental agent and organization. But now we got a better foothold. So I like to expand the partnership from governmental organization to direct business related. For example, IEAT, we call that Import-Export Association, Taichung, Taiwan. Taichung is the sister city with Cheyenne. So we got very good connection over there. And Taiwan Institute of Economic and Research, that's related with the CCUS. And I'm working with that organization to see if they like to import, I mean, from Taiwan viewpoint, is it possible for them import ITC technology or collaborate with ITC down the road for carbon capture as well. Number 3 is Taiwan External Trade Development Council. That is very, trade focused organization as well. Thai Power also is a very important organization for energy things. So that would be the next focus. Next, please. All right. Again, for the Wyoming business company, so I like to recruit more potential. I like to develop more potential opportunities. So I would, work close with WBC to recruit from Impact 307, engage WYO, because the president Amber Bullock is our good friend. So maybe I would, leverage her connection over there to, to recruit more companies, and WYO Ag Coalition, WIDA, and Chamber of Commerce. That's a very good target to get the connection with the IEAT, and Industry Association and Wyoming Food Coalition as well. So my approach, my deployment here will be, not only international trade show and showcase, but also direct visit to the importer and the distributor, online meeting as well, especially for current and COVID period. So online meeting is a very good tool to develop business as well. And digital marketing over our Facebook and a website and connection building as well. Next one. Education, that will be a little bit out of the business council work scope, but I think that's different. That's what so-called the indirect approach to develop business as well. So, as I mentioned, sales drop bioscience spin-off from education. So in the current terms, I try to help UW to recruit international students through the education fair. But after I figure out, if I really help Wyoming UW to recruit international, the best way is number 6, get the sistership, high school between Taiwan and Wyoming. So once the high school student in Taiwan know more about the high school student in Wyoming, so after they graduate from the high school, they would get more intention to attend the UW, rather than we spend a lot of time to promote UW. So that is one thing. Actually, we got 2 sisterships going to sign off in August. This August, I think, one from Campbell High School, the other from Rock Springs. The name is Build High School. These 2 high schools going to have sistership with Taiwan 2 high schools as well. So for education, I like to help spin-off company like Sales Drop Bioscience, as I mentioned, and get more entrepreneur and startup from Impact 307 engage WYO and WYO Ag Coalition as well, WIDA as well. Hopefully that would, transform for the education to the business opportunity. Yeah, next. Yeah, basically, I quickly recap what I have done and what I'm going to do for the next terms. Basically, I cope with the, WBC triangle to, push the business opportunity. And then, hopefully I got the post the COVID period. I hope I got the opportunity to make a presentation to the committee in person this year, hopefully. And again, welcome to click the trade office Facebook. We got the Food Taipei Expo today, and our president Chai come to our booth, Wyoming booth, to shake hand and listen my brief about Wyoming products. So this activity also show in her Facebook as well. So hopefully this good connection and relationship would help Wyoming companies not only focus on business in domestic market, but take a look at international market. That will be different world. Thank you.
Thank you, Chester. And Madam Committee Chair, we could open up the questions to Chester. We do have a guest who is working with Chester, a real business person, Amber Pollock with Backwards Distilling, who would like to talk about their experience, what they're trying to do in Taiwan, and the quality of assistance received from Chester. But would you like to ask questions of Chester or hear from Amber, and then we can have questions at the end?
Let's go ahead and do some overview questions from the board before we get into the motion and everything. So Amber, welcome. Do we want to let Ron have Amber say a few things and then open up fully for questions? So Amber, you're on.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you all today. I'm Amber Pollock with Backwards Distilling Company, and we have been working with the trade office in Taiwan for a couple of years now. Just wanted to come today to speak about our experience working with them and hopefully compel you all to support the contract moving forward. I hope that you'll see the value that we've received from that assistance and how it can impact more Wyoming businesses as well. So I just wanted to give you an overview of how it's worked for us. We were, I actually met Chester years and years ago towards the beginning of the program, I think, thanks to Ron. And it was an intriguing proposition to us at the time, but we didn't pursue it mostly because we had a lot of other growth areas that we were focused on. But they reached back out to us in late 2020, and that was actually a real surprise. As you can imagine, we're sort of mid-COVID, not really looking for growth opportunities, mostly just trying to survive at that point. But they indicated to us that they had, developed a network of folks, and there might be an opportunity for us to find a distributor in Taiwan. And since we really didn't have any other distribution opportunities that we were pursuing at the time, or even we didn't have a sales team out servicing our other markets at that time, it seemed like we had an opportunity to pursue something new. And so they started out by getting some samples and found us a distributor relatively quickly, which I can't overstate how difficult that has been for us here in the United States to find distributors. And so to have assistance finding a distributor was invaluable. Not only did they find us a distributor, but the distributor, was bona fide, was vetted, and placed an order relatively quickly. We had our first order in January of 2021. That was, again, mid-pandemic. To see a pallet go out to Taiwan when most of our other sales had slowed dramatically was a really big deal for us. They helped us negotiate with the distributor, which was really also important. They helped us advocate to get a fair deal, and they were always concerned about protecting our interests and making sure that we weren't getting the short end of the stick on any negotiation that might be happening. they helped us with some other things that were related to export that we hadn't had to do in the past, just because we were only selling domestically. So things like lab analysis of our products, freight forwarding and customs. And this was an extremely complicated process. I'm not sure, had the trade office not existed, that we would have pursued export like this, because it took a lot of hand-holding, and they were very patient and helped us figure that whole system out. It's one of those things where once you've done it once and you've got it kind of going, you feel a little bit more confident about it. But initially it was really daunting, really complex. Took a lot of work both for us and for them to get through that. But they helped us through every part of that process. They have attended on our behalf at least half a dozen trade shows, probably more. Chester sends me photos from time to time of him and Eva and our distributor Ann at many trade shows where they're showcasing our product and meeting with buyers. And then additionally, there were some other support opportunities that we used, like reimbursement for sending samples and some of those upfront costs to get into a new market that were able to be reimbursed through some grant funding. So it's a really comprehensive sort of experience, reduced a lot of barriers for us to be able to start exporting. We're on our third shipment now, and we've been sending about a pallet each time. So that's averaging out to be about a pallet every 6 months. And for a company of our size, every pallet that goes out is sort of a celebration. So finding, an outlet for what is initially maybe 2 pallets a year and is growing, starting from that point feels really like a solid starting point for us. And like it has a potential to do already is doing a meaningful amount of volume for us, and has a potential to grow from there. They now carry all of our products, started with just a few. They now have everything, and have helped us sort of understand that market, how people are drinking there, what the feedback has been from consumers in that market, in a way that we would not really be able to do without having folks who understand the market there on the ground, helping get feedback back to us so that we can be more successful there. So really, I would just encourage you all to continue to support this program. It's been really, really exciting for us, helpful for us. I'm hoping to make it to Taiwan soon to see in person. And, so really has been a great opportunity for our company. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber and Madam Committee Chair. We invited one other guest to more on the technology side to give you another perspective. We have Kent Holliday with Elution Technology, and we've been working with Kent since about November, I want to say, with English as a second language opportunity, as Taiwan the president has declared a goal of being a bilingual country in Mandarin Chinese and English by 2030. So Kent, I'll give you the floor there.
Great, Ron, and thanks, committee, for having me today. My name is Kent Holliday. I'm the founder of Elution Technology. We started in Ssbci, Wyoming in 2006. We worked with the Business Council a lot really early. We headquartered and continued in Wyoming because of the Business Council. And we just crossed our 10th year in our headquarter building that you helped build for us with Ford Cody and Cody. So we really appreciate that. It's been a great relationship. And we started early on with Bob Jensen many years ago. And our business has been growing. We haven't interfaced much with the Business Council the last few years because we've been all over the world working on partnerships. And you may or may not know, but the building up in Cody now hosts a joint venture with a publicly traded company out of Japan called Nagase, a $500 million publicly traded company. And also a joint venture out of Southeast Asia with a group called the Salim Group, run by Anthony Salim, conglomerate of companies worth over $30 billion. And so we're teaching across Asia. And this fall, out of a little headquarter in Cody, over 28,000 students will be going online to school this year. So it's pretty exciting. And it's taken a lot of work over the last many years. We were approached by Ron a few months ago about some opportunities in Taiwan, and we really hadn't looked at Taiwan much. And we have a lot of growth going on in Japan and Southeast Asia. And initially I thought, do we want to pursue a new market? Because pursuing new markets takes time. You got to find the right people. Just a little bit of background on me too, before I started TeachCast and Aleutian. I actually ran corporate development, business development, merger acquisitions for some pretty large companies in Asia Pacific based out of Seoul, Korea. Cisco Systems, Ericsson, Korea Telecom. So I've worked in Asia now for over 30 years. And we're still working on our project, but I just want to come on. And I usually wouldn't do it this early in a project, but Ron introduced me to Chester, and Chester looked at the market and said, hey, here's some possible partners, and really did the business development work for us looking at Taiwan. And now we're in discussions with a gentleman named Ricky Lee. And, you know, end of August, if the COVID restrictions open up, we'll be there to meet with Ricky and looking at doing a joint venture type partnership in Taiwan with Ricky and his company. And so, again, my experience with Chester has only been for a few months, but I wanted to come on because of my background in Asia and my background in technology and my background in building partnerships across Asia. It's not an easy thing. It's not, it really isn't. And I've met very few people who are as efficient and effective as Chester in analyzing a market and helping find the right partner. We really wouldn't be looking at Taiwan right now if it wasn't for Chester. And initially when Ron and Chester approached me, I thought, yeah, do we really want to look at this? And now we're looking at it, and it's gonna be a great market, right? I think in the next couple of years in Taiwan, because of Chester and his introduction to Ricky, you know, there will be 60 teachers who will be teaching students across Taiwan in the next couple of years, which, you know, brings jobs to America, you know, and really helps create some cross-border relationships that the world probably needs right now. You know, people in Taiwan meeting American teachers and getting to know them and understanding culture and learning how to speak English. And it's a great thing. So anyways, I've taken a lot of time, but again, Chester, Ron, they've been great to work with. Again, we thank the Business Council. Without the Business Council, we would have never got to where we got and where we are today. Anything we can do to help the Business Council or support the Business Council. We'd love to regroup. We haven't spent a lot of time with you guys in the last few years because COVID, and then we've effectively been traveling all over the world setting up partnerships. So we're grateful for the building you guys have built for us up there. It's been a great headquarters, and it's been a great showing of Wyoming when people from around the world come to see it. So again, I would highly recommend Chester in partnerships or anything in Taiwan. He's very competent from my experience. And I'm telling you, I've lived in Asia and worked in Asia for many, many years. You don't come across Chesters very often, especially in these roles, right? A lot of these guys in these roles are like, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I've got all these relationships, I'm going to do these things. And Chester actually is able to do it. So I'd happy to answer any questions, but Ron, thanks for the opportunity. And hey, Chester, thanks for helping us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kent and Amber. And real quickly, before I turn it over to questions, there is a letter in your packet also from Sam Kleichman, the owner of Big Lost Meadery and Brewing in Gillette. He wasn't able to join us today. But Madam Committee Chair, with that, would you like to take some questions?
That sounds great, Ron. Any questions from the board?
Ms. Thayer, I don't know if you can see it, but Kathy has her hand up. Oops. And I'm thinking Pam might have froze. So Kathy, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Okay, thanks, Erin. So this is for Chester and Amber. Good morning. I just was wondering, when you're talking about one distributor in Taiwan, Chester, Amber, do you feel like there's availability to do other distributors also over there? Or is that, I don't know how Taiwan liquor laws work, but I don't, would you just speak to that a little bit?
Okay. Basically, okay, actually, this is a business decision. I should leave it to Amber's, but my position here, I like to build up the foothold for Amber first. Once the business grows and maybe Amber will visit Taiwan someday this year or next year, I would refer the other potential for Amber, and that was Amber's decision. Okay, she like to focus on this distributor or the others. So basically, this is her business decision. Amber, you like to say anything?
Sure. Yeah. And you know, I don't know a lot about how that would look because we haven't gotten to that point yet, but I imagine it might be similar to how it is here, where different distributors have sort of areas that they cover or that they're most effective in or have staff in or whatever the case may be. And so, you know, I think that we would certainly be open to that and moving into other areas of Taiwan that might not be covered by our distributor. As of now, our current distributor, we're very happy with what she's been doing and the growth potential that she's presented with us. So it may be that, you know, there's plenty of growth opportunity just in the area that we're covering now. But, you know, certainly open to growing however we can in the Taiwan market.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call on myself since it looks like Pam might have run into some technical difficulties. So Chester and Amber and Kent, from a board perspective, and as we're hearing from companies as well as from, you know, a business council perspective in general, as we talk with companies that are thinking about this, like, what would you advise, especially going through this process, or Chester working with some of the companies in Wyoming, that people should be thinking of or preparing for, some of the biggest hurdles or some of the you're not ready until you've, you know, done this type of stuff? Because I mean, it seems really intriguing, right? Great new market. I want to dive in, but it's certainly not an easy aspect to do. So as we're talking, like, what should we say if people are asking about, you know, getting into this? Like, what are some of the things that we should say definitely think about or prep yourself for before you take on this endeavor?
Okay, I think that's very good questions, and I think that would be twofold. One from trade office side, the other from company side in Wyoming. From my viewpoint, the quality is very important because that talk a lot of things. So Amber's quality is good. Ken's teacher's quality is good because I learned a lot from their videos so far. So quality is the first things. Once we got a quality issue, you know, that's very difficult to recover. That's first things. Second thing is that we need to so-called the product or brand stories behind the, you know, this company. So Amber's product and Amber's story, Amber's company got a lot of story I can tell in Asia. So to Asian people, you know, they feel very excited and they feel very fantastic about the product design and taste as well. So, you know, products tell the story and differentiation. Ken's English as well, you know, there's no limit for time allocation. They can log on the internet to learn English anytime. And there's a, you know, section training program rather than, you know, time by time. So, you know, there's some feature of product over there. So that's what I need. Number three is the passion and ambition from, you know, Wyoming company and entrepreneur as well. You listen, you know, Amber, you know, she spent, you know, a couple of times to work together with trade office. Ken as well, a couple of months. So, you know, passion and ambition, you know. I don't know, my English is not good enough, but I don't know this word is polite or impolite. Sometimes, you know, Wyoming businessmen need to get more ambition to the world rather than focus on domestic market, because I sense the product in Wyoming very good from Asian viewpoint. So once they get more bold, you know, I think that will explore different world and different, you know, we call that blue ocean rather than red ocean in the world. So Asia is a good outlet for, you know, Wyoming product and service.
And Chester and Aaron, if you don't mind, I jump in. Back to your question, Aaron. I think it's really interesting, right? In Asia, especially, I think it's all around the world, but Asia especially, I think brand is really, really important, right? And so when people in Asia go to look to do a partnership, is based on relationship, right? So who is introducing me and how am I related to this person and what other relationships does this person have? That's really important. The second important part of the business is brand, right? And so I'll give you an example, right? With Aleutian, we started teaching English 15 years ago, and we were teaching 100 different books. We started in Korea in one school district. We had 100 different English content books our teachers were teaching. It wasn't scalable. About 10 years ago, Oxford University Press came to us out of the UK, and they said, let's do a joint venture. And we took Aleutian and put a joint venture together called TeachCast with Oxford. And so Oxford, that brand is recognized around the world, which opens doors and helps us expand pretty quickly, right? So brand and the credibility of the partner is really, really important in Asia, right? And the reason I bring that up is because I think for Wyoming companies to get into Taiwan, they're going to look at who the person is bringing it in. Chester, check, that box is checked. And then they want to look at the brand, right? And the more Wyoming is able to build the Wyoming brand in Taiwan, and people are able to see Wyoming as a brand and as a business brand and a state that can work with Taiwan, the more opportunities there's going to be for Taiwan companies, right? And to come and partner with the Wyoming companies, right? Because there's a lot of Wyoming companies, the brand's just not quite there, or there is a brand, but we don't really know them and they're across the ocean. And so in place of that brand, whatever that brand ABC is, if it's a Wyoming company brand and Wyoming has that brand in Taiwan and Chester's running that relationship, it's going to help people expand a lot quicker. And so I think one of the things that the state should maybe look at with Chester is how do you expand that Wyoming brand, and how do you tie the Wyoming brand to these companies that are going into Taiwan so that the company and Wyoming both are elevated? Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think it's really important. And again, you know, if Chester was taking us into partners in Taiwan and our brand was Aleutian, and we have teachers who teach English using, you know, Pearson books, right? Finding partners in Taiwan would take a while because the brand's not that credible, right? We've been at it for 15 years. People around the world know Aleutian, but now we go in with TeachCast with Oxford, and we have the Oxford brand partnered with Aleutian, and all of a sudden, all the partners want to be our partner because we have the Oxford brand, right? What I'm saying is, I think as Wyoming looks at the partnership with Chester, figure out over the next few years, how do you develop this Wyoming brand to be like an Oxford brand? So people say, oh, it's a Wyoming company. We know Wyoming, we trust Wyoming. The Wyoming delegation has been here. It's not just some company that's in the Rocky Mountains and you know, America that I've been to when I went to Yellowstone. How do you build Wyoming's brand into a business brand, an international business brand? Because I think if you're able to do that, then Chester is going to be able to pull more companies to Taiwan. But if you just go in with, you know, brands in Wyoming that no one knows, it's going to take a long time and it's going to be really hard to build that up quickly. So that's just my recommendation. And we'd love to work with you guys to do it, right? If we take Wyoming and Oxford put together, right, it'd be interesting.
Perfect. Thanks, Kent. So
It's like Josh has a question.
Josh. And then, sorry, Pam, I'll pass it back over.
Oh.
That's fine.
Yeah, well, Madam Co-Chair, Madam Committee Chair, Ron, thank you all. I guess I just want to remind everyone kind of this meeting, remember, it's good that we're getting some of this discussion out, and I appreciate it. One thing we need to remember is that these agreements have all gone through committee. These agreements, in many cases, this one has gone in front of the Joint Appropriations Committee as well. And so our committee structure as well as Joint Appropriations have kind of gone through the details of these. And the purpose of this meeting is to really kind of understand the committee's maybe even recommendations or understanding of these agreements, as well as get the board to ask a few questions and then move forward with a recommendation or not. one thing I love hearing all of these, but because it's really important, but we may bring these groups back to do a check-in on the work. I think at this point, we just want to make sure that the scope of work matches what we've been getting and what we're going to get, as well as make sure that this is a use of our funds that we want to continue. And while some of these discussions and questions are definitely important and germane to that, I just want to remind everyone this has been through staff review, committee review, and now it's to the board. And so I just want to make sure that we don't get too bogged down into the details right now, just because a lot of that has been covered already in our structure. Thanks.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Josh. And that's exactly where we want to move forward. So are there any other questions on the contract? I want to thank Amber and Kent and Chester and Ron for all their hard work and putting this presentation together. So at this time, Amy, I think we do have an action item. And so can I have a motion to approve the contract with Advanced Commercial Providers, Ltd. of Taiwan for the continued operation of the Wyoming Asian Pacific Trade Office in Taipei through biennium fiscal year ending 2024?
So moved. This is Mark Law.
I'll second. This is Kathy. Thank you. Any discussion? May I call for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, the next thing we have for the Services Standing Committee is the contract with Leadership Wyoming for design and implementation of statewide economic development leadership training program. And Brandon, I'm going to flip that over to you and Amy.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, committee chair there. I appreciate it a lot. So I was going to say something about catching us up on the agenda, but our time just ended. So here's a no hope of that. I have to catch up in some other committee. Asking today for approval from the board for a contract with Leadership Wyoming, the organization you're very likely familiar with, known as the premier leadership development organization around the state of Wyoming. We have been working really for several years on a concept and ideas of how to help build capacity in local communities for economic development from all levels of stakeholders, from professional economic developers to local legislators to council people to mayors, and then just stakeholders within the communities. We've been trying to develop a lot of different concepts. How do we help with this? We have the opportunity this year to work with Leadership Wyoming on the design and implementation of a economic development leadership program. The overall vision we have for this is coming out of this program, not duplicating what Leadership Wyoming already does with their existing program, but specifically angling things to economic development, problems in the state, solving problems together and solutions, and building cohorts of people that are teamed up around the state that are committed in a common vision to doing things bigger, better together. So what we envision, although not being prescriptive to the design of the program, we want to give Leadership Wyoming kind of free reign to do what they believe is best, as they're the ones that have developed the magic sauce in the past. But we envision what will come out of this will be in-state content, various parts of the state, looking at local issues potentially, as well as out-of-state content that would be training from some of the professional economic development groups, whether that's IEDC, the Mid-America Economic Development Council, or even National Development Council. Again, we're trying not to presuppose what the best path forward is, but those are some of the options that we're going to take a look at with Leadership Wyoming. This contract is in two phases. Our first phase is design, which is a $25,000 phase. The second one, which is something we would envision implementing in 2023, that has an up to $200,000 line in it. As you can see in the board book, this contract is actually ready to go, has been approved by the Attorney General's office. So with your approval, we will sign and hit the ground running. I do have Mandy Fable, the Executive Director of Leadership Wyoming, has joined us and can be available for questions from the board or the committee. And then also want to make sure to ask Amy Grenfell if she has any input at this point that she'd like to share.
No additional input, Brandon, from me.
That's great.
So Brandon, let's pull on Mandy real quick. But before something, I want to make sure that the board realizes is this is also a biennium fiscal year ending 2024. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was realizing that this was a 2-year biennium contract. So Mandy, real quickly, so we can get caught up.
Good morning, everyone. In the sake of getting caught up, the good news is I don't have a presentation or any real details to share because we haven't started designing or working on this yet. This is all sort of prospective forward development work based on this contract. So I'm happy to take any questions that you may have, or Brandon, if there's something specific you'd like me to talk about, I can, but I don't need to run my mouth without relevance.
No, Mandy, I don't necessarily think there is anything specific. I wondered if it anticipate the board having questions on maybe the history of Leadership Wyoming, if they're not familiar with that, and the reputation you built around the state, or even how you go about designing programming. But without any, that's fine too. But that was our only expectation.
Mr. Law has his hand up. Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Committee Chair. I just had a really quick question. Is I think the majority of us understand or have had some interaction with Leadership Wyoming. Just in a very brief deal, Mandy, could you explain how this differs? And it explained it a little bit in there, but maybe just the 30,000-foot view of how this differs from how Leadership Wyoming functions and how this will be maybe more geared toward other areas.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Nice to see you.
Same here.
I think in Brandon and Amy coming to us to sort of talk about the possibility of a collaborative effort, the goal is that it would be a cohort of economic development oriented people. So people working in economic development, stakeholders, professionals all across the board. So the Leadership Wyoming cohort, we really strive for the utmost diversity of industry, geography, perspective. This would be a slightly more homogeneous group because it would be focused on economic development, and a lot of the technical curriculum would be related to that. But as you all know, that's still a pretty broad swath of what that might represent, the types of experiences, but it would have a more of a credentialing type experience because of pulling in some of these outside educational opportunities. But the real benefit being these individuals get to meet other economic development stakeholders across the state, learn from them, develop mentorship, friendship relationships, those sorts of things. So we're hoping for the same sort of engagement and dynamic delivery of content, but a little more through the lane of economic development versus anyone across the state.
Great. Thank you, Mandy. That answers my question.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, so again, I think what's key here is that when we've been talking about the triangle and that broad view on the bottom, is this is really what is getting that local people, the development and leadership skills or resources to them. So I think that's key when we're talking about what we're following with the triangle. So if there are not, I can't see because I'm on a smaller screen now, but if there are no other questions, can I have a motion to approve the contract with Leadership Wyoming for design and implementation of statewide economic development leadership program?
This would be Chuck Kenyon. I'd make that motion.
And this is Derek Smith. I'll second.
Great. Any other discussion? I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay. The next contract we have is the contract with Lightbox Parent LP for broadband mapping services. And Brandon and Elena, you're on.
Go ahead, Brandon. Sorry.
Go ahead, Elena.
I got out in front of myself. Sorry about that. This contract is for mapping, address-based mapping that we are trying to do in anticipation of the Connect Wyoming application process that you will be looking at the rules for. This mapping, it will help us determine what are unserved and underserved areas of the state, and therefore what is eligible for funding. And although what is eligible for funding, I would like to at this time introduce Dave Johnson, who is here. He is our subject matter expert that we have retained at the Broadband office to help with the technical aspects that he will be. Some of you are familiar with Dave. He was with CenturyLink for 38 years, I believe, and he is here to talk about if you have questions about the importance of this mapping. This contract is for the mapping part, as you can see from it, is $250,000. It has can be can be renewed for other benchmarks or other deliverables as we determine that we will need. At this time, if Amy has any input about the contract, Amy, could you provide that?
Yes, so Madam Co-Chair, members of the board, the contract that you're seeing in front of you is for a vendor called Lightbox, and Elena will explain a little bit more about why Lightbox. But we are looking to enter into a $250,000 contract to get our broadband mapping efforts started. That contract will run through October 31st, 2022.
Okay. Lightbox, the choice of Lightbox came from research that I did. We were looking at different companies that had done work throughout the United States. Lightbox was one of the premier ones that came to the surface. They had done Georgia and Alabama, but most importantly, they had done Montana, and they had mapped Montana in an extremely short time of 45 days. When we started our initial conversation with Lightbox, they go, we're not doing that again. So we're a little bit longer on this, although we're a smaller state geographically and population wise, but they said that darn near killed them. So Lightbox has been really good to get back to us in a timely fashion. I have interviewed some of the people who have received the services, who have contracted with services with Lightbox, and they had a good they had good reviews. This is a contract that we need to get this mapping address based out. It's going to take us several months. We're hoping that everything comes together much like that perfect storm, so that only in a good way, that we will get our rules done about the same time as the mapping is done, and thus the request for this contract. With that, I will certainly entertain any questions, and please feel free to ask Dave Johnson any questions also. Erin Moore.
So Elena, so I know we've been on this mapping venture for quite some time now. Can we talk about the data and how and what we're looking at? I mean, I see in the contract the data sources. It looks like it's primarily federal data sources. And I know that's been a sticking point with things in the past. So can we talk about what we feel is going to be different with this venture in terms of the data going forward versus what we've done in the past?
Okay, we had initially contracted with YGIS, which is a agency out of the University of Wyoming. When YGIS put that initial map together, it was done with a couple data sources. One was the UCLA speed test data source, and the other one was the 477 maps. That those are federal that the providers put in. They were census block based, so they were large portions. And in my initial talking, our initial interviews, I did recontact YGIS. They had reduced their mapping down from the census block to a hexagonal base, but that's still a very large area. One side of the hexagon can be as much as 500 meters, and they, I think, went down to 100 meters. The new maps that the FCC is putting out on Form 477 for the providers will be address based, and they did a delay. They're victim of a lawsuit. They had chose a company and got tied up in the lawsuit. And so they, with the outcome being is it delayed their maps several months, and they will not be available for us to do this Connect Wyoming 2.0. That's why we went with, it's pretty well accepted among all the states that mapping was needed, and mapping at an address-based level. YGIS, at the point we started to the point where YGIS wasn't sure about their capacity, is Teal Wyckoff, who did a lot of the mapping for us, had accepted another position. So we want to comport as closely as we can with what we think we're going to see with the the FCC mapping that will come out probably, maybe not until early 2023. The best estimates are the end of 2022. We want this, we want to get out what's called the 604 funds as quickly as the Connect Wyoming, as quickly as can before the BEAD funds come. And we're trying to maneuver through two programs. Aaron, go ahead and ask any additional questions. I'm not sure that answered exactly what you were asking.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get a better understanding, because I understand our frustration with the data, right? Our frustration with the data is that right now we have census block data, which is what we were able to get from the feds. And so the issue is we have frustration with census block data. So where I'm trying to go is, how through this process are we ensuring that our data quality improves?
Okay, in my research, what Lightbox uses for their data is varied. They also use the UCLA data, which will be incorporated, and so will the speed tests that we did within the state, that will be incorporated. But speed tests have inherent flaws in this. Lightbox uses the GIS data that they can glean from county and city websites that are out there. They also use existing mapping products like Google Maps. They have a contract there. They have some other mapping contracts with companies that how do I want to say this? So they have what they call smart fabric at Lightbox, and what they do is, I do not know all of the subcontracts that they have, but they do have a subcontract. So it's a comprehensive mapping. It isn't relying just on speed tests. It isn't just relying on the GIS, because and it isn't just relying on one, it's incorporating all of those in. And that's is what puts them at the head of a lot of the other companies that are doing this.
Okay, so is Dave with Lightbox?
Dave is not. Dave is with us.
So do we have anybody from Lightbox on?
We do not.
Okay. Is there a reason why we don't have somebody from Lightbox on?
No, there is not.
Okay.
Kathy?
So, and this is just a real quick question. So all the mapping that was done with the CARES Act, will that be incorporated into the Lightbox contract? That is that even valid anymore? The mapping that was just done? I'm a novice at this, so just a quick answer is good.
Thanks, Kathy. The UCLA data is updated now. So what was included in the mapping that we had done previously is Lightbox already has a contract access to that will be put in, but they will also use the speed tests that we had that YGIS and the Broadband office had done earlier. So, but that is a very tiny part of what will become the smart fabric map that we'll get from Lightbox.
Okay, thanks.
Josh?
Is Cindy?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think if Cindy was next and then Josh, I kind of wrote down. Cindy, are you still?
Yes, I'm here, but I think Josh was next.
Okay, Josh, sorry.
Yeah, maybe I can help clear this up a little bit. So one thing to remember is that Lightbox is a technology provider that is what you might call fairly standard in the industry, in that they homogenize and take in a bunch of different data sources and that really enables you to get a very good picture of what's going on the ground, or at least the best picture possible. And so what we have to do, the reason we're doing this mapping and the reason that it's important is because if we don't have adequate mapping, our applications for other funding sources through all of the money that's coming at us will be greatly hindered, because we're going to need address level mapping. We're also going to need a good justification for the projects that we're doing and the money that we're asking for. Dave could probably fill in a little bit on that. I just want to make sure that everybody understands why we're doing this. The other data that we have collected over time, this is data that is ours and we can utilize it. And so just to remind everybody, we're continuing to work on the mapping, and this is an avenue to get that done so that we can put our best foot forward when we go and apply for funds from the federal government. The funding from the federal government is not guaranteed. Some of it is based on a formula, some of it is not. And we want to make sure that we're able to put the best application forward. This is a key component of that. I just want to keep everybody at that level before we start talking too many ones and zeros and getting us all in the weeds, or again, in the bits there. So hopefully that helps a little bit, and that's all I've got to add there. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. So Cindy, did you want to go next with the question? Did you have a question still after Josh spoke?
Yes. One of the things that I'd like to know is, how are we going to, when the project's finished, how are we going to receive that data? Do we own the data? And can we extract pieces of that data at any time? And if they're using many, many programs that they have to contract or subcontract to, do we have to have those same software subcontracts in order to view the data? So those are just some of my little questions, and maybe Dave can answer those.
And Dave probably could answer some more deeply. What I can tell you, Cindy, is that when we first started talking about mapping, and we had talked to another state agency that could have been, that would benefit from mapping. So that became a very important part of our negotiation with Lightbox, is that we could take the data with us and use it in other places. Now, this data, there's a map that's a public facing map, and there's a map that's a private facing map. And so to give a level of comfort to the providers, we need to have that private facing, but we do, that's written into the contract. We do own that, and we can take it with us. Dave, would you like to, I'm sorry, Pam.
No, you're good, Elena. I think we have Derek has his hand up, but I don't know if it would be more appropriate to have Dave Johnson come in here and answer some questions. I think I'm going to turn it. Derek, are you good with letting Dave go? I just don't want to, I want to keep it in order.
I'm fine. My question's probably one that we can just either answer with David. He may even answer it before I get there.
Okay, so Dave Johnson, we'll go ahead and bring you in.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, Committee Chair, members of the council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Ms. Moore, let me help answer your question. First of all, I think a couple of additional layers that Lightbox will be incorporating into the mapping will be the previous federal programs. The RDOF program, the CAF program, those overlays will be critical to our decisions as well. And one of the key components is the data that will be provided by the actual providers that are doing business today. So I think at an addressing level, that is one of the most critical components that Lightbox will be incorporating into the data. So I certainly hope that helps answer your question about really how valid that data will be going forward as well. And then to answer Mrs. Johnson's question as well, that agreement did come with a license agreement that allows the state to access that data in the future as well. So if there's other questions, I would certainly entertain those at this time, and I have additional comments as well.
So Dave, I'm just going to jump in because I think you answered my question, but I just want to verify that Lightbox will be reaching out to, especially our local companies and providers to get their coverage data, to make sure that we have the most accurate data possible, not just relying on the government research, correct?
Madam Co-Chair, Mr. Smith, that is correct. And it will be a requirement of the providers in order to apply for these funds to provide that data.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, Erin, did you have another question?
Yeah, I'm still not feeling quite like the data question is answered in terms of, I mean, I know the goal of this, right, if this is understated, is trying to get to address-based level data. And I'm just trying to get a better comfort level. I mean, we've been down this road multiple times, and I'm just trying to get a better comfort level that as we go through another contracting round, that we're actually going to be able to get to the data that we need to make the map work. Because at the end of the day, I mean, the technology, like smart fabric, whatever you want to call it, that doesn't matter. The goal is if we don't have good data going into the map, it doesn't matter. And that's been our obstacle over this entire period that we've been going through the mapping process, is the data, the quality of the data, the access to the data. And so I'm trying to get a better feel in terms of how we're actually overcoming our data hurdles this time around.
Madam Co-Chair, I would just say that in review of their work product, and particularly the Montana work product, and the Montana Connect program is at the challenge period today. in reviewing that data that's available publicly, I'm confident that the input that has been done by the providers through Lightbox into that mapping is going to be adequate to meet our needs. In addition to that, I mean, Lightbox goes beyond really what I think, what I understood WIGIS was going to be able to do in even getting the application blocked into that data as well, which will really be a critical component. You know, really, to your point, mapping is really the foundation of the Connect Wyoming program. The mapping process, which the providers must begin providing for their applications, is key. And once that data is entered, I'm confident that we will be in an excellent position to make fair and accurate evaluations of the funding applications. And again, you know, we don't want to utilize funds to duplicate in areas that federal programs have already been awarded. This mapping is key, and Lightbox's input is key in order for us to evaluate it at that level. So again, you know, based on their work product, Madam Co-Chair, I'm confident that they are the vendor of choice.
Aaron, did you feel like you got your question answered?
So can we, well, kind of. As a committee, we had asked to have Lightbox here to be able to address some of these questions because we had them in committee, but so just to note that, I don't know if we want to have, Stacy had made a comment in that they had some experience on the Lightbox data side, but I don't know at this stage. So we'll go ahead. Pam, you can, there's some other questions, and I know Brandon has some comments, so.
I think Cindy, Cindy, do you want to go ahead?
Yes.
And then we'll go to and then we'll go to Brandon.
Okay, because of David's answer, having access to the data is not the same as having the data. And do we have to keep a contract forever with Lightbox if we want to access the data? We have to ask them to pull out any reports that we want, and then we pay for those on a piecemeal basis, or will we actually download that data? Right? Is the data ours versus we have access to it? Two totally different things.
Madam Committee Chair, I can answer that if you'd like.
Thank you.
Every contract that the state of Wyoming puts out has Section S. You might want to refer to page 41 in your board book. Section S is ownership and return of documents and information. The first line, agency is the official custodian and owns all documents, data compilations, reports, computer programs, photographs, data, and other work provided to or produced by the contractor in the performance of this contract. So yes, we own it.
So Cindy, I think Brandon has answered that question. Do you feel like you got that question answered? Okay, Brandon, was there any, you had your hand up, I think, before Cindy's question. Did you have some more questions or feedback?
Well, I was going to make a probably sad attempt at addressing Aaron's questions on data, and because I think the simplicity of the answer is that what's better about this, the reason this is different than what's just available out there in data, is address-based. That's the difference. That's what we struggled with before, is that was not address-based. And the remarkable thing that causes this particular contract to be of extreme value to us is that address-based. We have no way of knowing within a census block whether we are actually overbuilding or not if we don't have that address data. That's the key. That's the piece that allows us to award grants that allows us to object if there's, excuse me, I'm having a back thing this week and I thought standing would be better and it's not. Anyway, but that is the critical piece of data, and that to me is the most basic and granted, fully admitted, novice way of understanding it. But that's it. That's what's better about it.
Okay, so Brandon, and it might be better if we maybe table this conversation, just Pam, but I understand the importance of the address base and the data. So I completely understand that. Like, I get the value, I get why we want it. My concern is we've never been able to get to the basis of address-based data in the past. And so what I'm trying to understand is what makes this effort different so that we can actually get down to address-based data. And that's where I'm trying to find the linkage here and find the answer, and where I'm struggling.
Maybe, Aaron, you're probably correct. This probably is maybe a good point to go to a different conversation or an offline conversation on those pieces, because we don't have the Lightbox people in. I mean, I think a ton of what it is, though, is what Dave was mentioning, that this is the data you can go directly to those providers. Our experience in the first Connect Wyoming program is the providers don't necessarily even have to provide this data to the federal government, so it isn't widely available. That's the effort that is a differentiator there too, because if you use what's available, you don't know whether it was actually reported or not. There aren't necessarily requirements, and that was a real struggle for us in that last program. But
you're absolutely correct.
Right. So, Madam Chair, what I'm hearing is that we would like to table this action item. Is that correct?
I think so, especially in lieu of the company not being here to answer these questions. But I'm also happy if there's anybody else at the discretion of the board in terms of tabling this. So
I think Amy, and step in here if I'm incorrect, but I think we would have a motion to table this action item. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I think we'll do this motion first. Can I have a motion? Go ahead.
I am sorry, Madam Chair, but Lightbox is available right now if you would like to have them. I don't know if that changes how you want to move forward.
Madam Chair, we haven't started a motion to table this. I guess we're kind of in between on motions and different things that, we've been waiting to hear from them. Maybe this would open up and answer the questions, and maybe we wouldn't then not have to table it.
Yeah.
Would you?
How do we feel in time?
Well, we are, time-wise, we are short, but I guess that is up to the rest of the board on timing. Josh raised his hand.
Madam Committee Chair and Madam Co-Chair, I would say that the time required to start a new meeting and do all of that would take longer than adding Lightbox in and having them explain to the best of their ability before we decide to table this. That's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Great.
I think that is, Josh, I think that is great. So Elena, let's go ahead, or Amy, can you let Lightbox in as a panelist then, please, and we can continue with this action item.
Yes, Elena, can you please give me names of who we're adding in?
You'll be adding in William Price. I still need to get him the contact information. One moment.
Derek, in the meantime, Derek, you have raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick question while we're waiting. And this is probably a Brandon Elena question. The way that this program will be structured going forward, the providers are required to provide this data to the system in order to get funding, correct? So that's the motivation this time around for them providing the data, is to participate?
There were some same stipulations on the last program.
That's good information to know for sure.
Yeah.
But just to clarify, is that the case?
Sorry, I was assuming Elena would chime in there, but I know she's busy getting information over to Amy for attendees. That would be one of the pieces of this is, and I apologize, I don't actually, because we haven't designed the guidelines for this program as it rolls out again, but that would be the intention, was that what we would do, there will be an objection period in any of the grants that we put out through Connect Wyoming in this next series. This would be the data used as objections if we are potentially overbuilding. If we don't have the data, we have no idea. That would be the main requirement for it.
Oh, Pam, you're on mute.
Any other questions while we're waiting?
I'm sorry. Madam Chair, while we were waiting, there is a gentleman, Derek Smith, on the phone that's worked with Lightbox. Is there any chance that this committee would like, or this board would like to hear from him?
Just to clarify, it's Greg Worthen with
I'm sorry.
is one of the people watching the meeting, and he has expressed desire to speak to his experience if the board would so desire.
Before we do that, I think Amy has her hand up. Amy, before we answer that question.
Yeah, Madam Co-Chair, Madam Committee Chair, my suggestion is that we get Lightbox on and then we'll run through questions as needed.
I think that's how I would like to go ahead and wait for Lightbox, and then if we have time, as time allows, we can see if we can move past to other. Josh, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Committee Chair. What is, Amy, maybe you could help on this, help chime in here. What is the our ability to move things around in the agenda so that we can go ahead and continue with the next phase and then perhaps come back to this agenda item?
Yeah, I may need to lean on our legal counsel on this question. We've got Brandy Monger from the AG's office on. The reason why is that this meeting is a special meeting, and I do know that special meetings have different requirements around the agenda. Brandy, are we able to move on in the agenda, or do we? Oh, I see Mr. Price on the line now. Actually, I believe he was just added, or he was.
I'm here.
Okay. So, Madam Committee Chair, Madam Co-Chair, I believe we've got Mr. Price on from Lightbox.
Great. I think what I'd like to do is go back with Erin so she can pose her question to Mr. Price. Are you agreeable with that, Madam Chairman?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Bill. Nice to meet you all.
Hi, Bill. Welcome.
Hi, Bill. Welcome.
So
how can I help?
Hi, Bill. So we're talking through this particular contract, and we just want to gain a better understanding. We've been through this mapping venture a couple of times now. And so what we're trying to gauge is we know that a lot of our stumbling blocks and hurdles on this are due to the quality of data that we have in terms of where it's specifically around where our broadband services are and at what levels. And so what we're trying to understand a little bit better is what makes this effort different than the efforts that we had in the past, and how are we going, knowing that our goal here is trying to get down to address-based data in our broadband service areas. What makes this effort and your company's team able to accomplish the task that we've been struggling with in the past? Like what's different here?
Sure. Yeah. So like you, in my professional life inside state government, working for the state of Florida and state of Georgia, where we did broadband mapping from 2010 to 2015, it was never at the location level, right? And we used NTI funding back then during stimulus to do that level of mapping, which was census block level, where it was kind of the one served all served scenario, which everybody knows that using that approach doesn't really give you a clear, precise picture for making investments in infrastructure. So my experience, which got me started down this path with Lightbox, was when we did in Georgia. We did a location level, 5.2 million locations. Broadband was there 25/3 or not, right? Served or unserved. And so the first thing you got to have to bake this cake is you got to have a database of all your locations, your residential and commercial structures. If it's a property, a parcel that has more than one structure, how many structures are on it, and for each structure, are there subunits within it, right? Like in a downtown business block, you might have one structure, but it might be divided into 8 units, right? So that's 8 units that might want to order broadband. So is it available to them or not? Or if it's an apartment complex or even a nursing home or a multi-unit residential property, are there subunits, and how many are there, and what are their addresses, and what does the building footprint look like, and can you put a point, a latitude, longitude coordinate point on the center of each of those units in each of those structures, right? So you have this record of information about each and every property and each and every structure on the property. And that's what you're trying to determine, is there broadband service available to them or not, right? So we did that in Georgia, and I was working for the state, and that's how I got to know Lightbox, and they got to know me. So then Lightbox said, well, can we take this model and this approach to the other states? And of course you can, right? So the difference is we're seeking input from the ISPs in a state to tell us, for all of these locations, where can you provide what speeds, right? Typically it's 25/3 or faster, and now 100 down and 20 up or faster, right? Whereas in the past, it was never at that level of specificity. And the hard part, there's 2 hard parts, which is getting all the location data together and accurate. And then the other is getting all the different, so if you had 30 or 40 ISPs, you bring in all their availability data, and then you integrate it and correct it. And that leaves you with, these are all the locations that could get 25/3. These are all the locations that could get 100 down, 20 up, and all the rest are the ones that are unserved, right? So you could color them red or whatever color makes you happy. So that, I simplified, but that's what's really different, right? And so Lightbox as a company has been around for quite a while. It's about 500 people, and their whole business, their whole core focus is location information, location data. And they've been providing it to commercial insurance companies for risk evaluation of properties for a long time, commercial real estate and realtors for real estate transactions. So underneath the web, application that users use in daily workflow is all this location data that's pretty comprehensive. And, when you're on the state side and you're basically going to license the use of this data, you need rights to share that data in different program purposes, like for grant applicants or for ISPs participating in mapping, you've got to be able to share that data. You don't share it with everybody and anybody. You don't make it available for public download, but you got to be able to share it. So that was really critical to us when I was with the state of Georgia. It was getting the data sharing rights, the right to use, right? That was really important. So I would say, what makes Lightbox, or what enables Lightbox to do this, it's that core data about properties and structures and buildings that they have nationwide, that they, if you use Zillow or Google or, Apple apps, it's pulling, from the location data platform. So that's their core focus. They spend, there's a lot of people, 100 plus people who focus just on the quality and the comprehensiveness of that data. They own some of the data, like the building footprints. They own that themselves. They develop that. They source, of course, parcel data from all the property appraisers across the entire United States. And it's not just getting it as is, it's getting it and basically going through a process of cleaning it up and ensuring it's accurate before you actually integrate it with other data sets and put it out there for customers to use. And then, our first state as a company doing broadband mapping was the state of Montana. And, Montana was pretty challenging because their governor had said they were going to launch their grant program on date certain, which really only gave us 60 days to do what you would normally take 4 months to do. Right. Mm-hmm. So we all hands on deck, and this was over the Christmas holidays. I mean, it's crazy, but we got it done. Right. And so that kind of, as a new guy to Lightbox, I mean, I've been here now for a year. Right. So for me coming in, having been through broadband mapping myself over and over and over again with multiple states, it sort of proved to me these guys can do what they're saying they can do. Right. I mean, it was good to see. And we got it done, and we applied the same methodology we used in the state of Georgia, gathering ISP data and how we asked for it, and creating the layers and the map applications in the mapping platform. So that was good, right? And I can show it to you and show you what it looks like if you want to see.
No, that's okay. I'm not worried so much about the technology pieces. I'm just really concerned with the ability to access the data. That's been our hurdle thus far. Yeah. And so that's what I'm just looking for is the ability to get over that. We've struggled to get ISP data here. There's nothing particularly to say that they have to give us the ISP data. And so that's kind of where the concern lies.
Every state's the same in that boat, right? I mean, mm-hmm. they stripped away government authority over internet a long time ago, right? So, and when we started this in Georgia prior to COVID and prior to all the money, it was, we sucked up to them a lot, right? And we accommodated their concerns and fears because they fear each other most about their information getting to their competitor and being used against them, right? So we worked really hard to get 44 of them in Georgia to contribute their data, to sell them on the idea that this is good for you too, that we as government don't get it wrong, right? So then COVID happened, and then all the money happened, and then their tune changed substantially in terms of submitting their data to us. Now, you have to be able to protect each company's individual data from public records request. There's two ways that I can think of to do it. One is you can do it in statute. I know that takes, I know what that process takes, trust me. You can do it that way, or what you can do is, as an example, you could contract with a firm like us, like Lightbox, to deliver you a map representing a data set of all the served, all the unserved, and all the underserved, right? And I don't actually contract with you to give you Comcast data or AT&T's data or Frontier's data, right? I don't contract with you to give you that. On the backside, I've got NDAs with each of the providers, and they're giving me their data, right? And since I'm not under contract with you to give you each one of their individual data, then none of us have to give it out as subject to public records. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So that's the two ways I can think of to, if you don't, to do it. If you don't have in statute, we can certainly do it the other way, right? But yeah, they're perfectly willing to work with us and give us their data as long as we can protect their individual companies' data, right? And as long as they, believe with some confidence that we have process and procedure, that we're legitimately trying to do this right, and that we'll work with them. Like, every state we do this in, I mean, you wind up doing a whole lot of hand holding with the ISPs, because a lot of the ISPs, they don't have dedicated GIS experts on staff. They're small companies, right? So they have to contract out to help us to even, do what we're asking them to do. So it is a big ask, and it is a little bit complicated. And it takes away people from their day jobs. So we have to recognize that and be empathetic, right? And we have to be supportive and be available to them when they have technical questions once they enter into the process of, getting us the data. And we've done a whole lot of that in every state. I mean, we did it in Georgia. We're doing it in Montana, right? And it can work, right? So I'm not guaranteeing you that if you had 40 ISPs, that all 40 are going to give you their data in the first round. I'm not saying that. I mean, all you can do is ask and cajole and support. And, we found that most of them in Georgia and most of them in Wyoming and Montana did it. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Madam Co-Chair, do you feel like you've gotten your questions? Have answered? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? So then Josh and Amy, I'm gonna throw this out as an option. Derek, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you, Madam Committee Chair. Bill, just a quick question for you. Your experience in Montana is probably similar to Wyoming in that there are a lot of smaller mom and pop ISPs that aren't necessarily government registered, that can be a little tricky to find. What's your process? How do you go about finding some of these smaller ones and bringing them into the fold? Because what may look like a missing hole in a map may have a local provider that's already covering it.
Yeah, you're right. And it's a real pain in the, I'll be frank, it's a real pain in the butt. But you can do it. There's a couple ways to get there. So, pretty much every state will have a telecom association and sometimes a cable association. And those guys are usually pretty helpful in identifying the right contacts, because you want to identify both all the companies that are providing 25.3 or faster in the state, but you need to find, I'll have to go get all the executive contacts, because, in the first step is you want to, reach out and invite and describe so that you get their interest, right? So it's not just the company, it's the right people, right? So the other part of this, the identification of who the right people are, there's two really good sources for that. There's the FCC 477 filing. So that gives me a list of pretty much, 98% of the providers of broadband service in a state, right? So that's the company names, right? So then the next step is who in those companies, right? Of course, you can go to their websites, you can go to LinkedIn. We subscribe to contact information services that, I can pretty much get the phone number and email of everybody on this call if I wanted to. Then there's something called the FCC RDOF filings for the auction for the money that typically identifies key contacts. There are FCC license registration for fixed wireless providers. Usually you get CEOs and vice president contacts, phone numbers and emails. Then there's the E-rate program, and they have to file, a lot of these companies, if they're participating in government programs, they have to file forms and they have to identify who the key executives are, right? So that is, how I go about it. And it's manual. And it just takes time. Like if you said, Bill, how long is it going to take you to get all the ISPs contacts for the state of Wyoming? I'd say, well, it's going to take me 2 weeks, and I'm going to have to burn a bunch of hours, going and looking in these systems and then creating a spreadsheet, company name, president, vice president, general manager, legal counsel, right? So that's what I go to their websites, you know, and you know, does that hit 100% all the time? No, it does not. I mean, it's like there was in Montana, there was an ISP, a two-person ISP, right, who came up 8 months after and said, I'm not in the map. Well, I'm not in the map. Well, it's like, well, you're not filing 477s with the FCC. You don't have a website, no website, right? You see what I'm saying? So it's not 100% all the time, but it's pretty darn close, right?
Fair enough. I just know from a previous career in the wireless and ISP space, that's one of the most difficult things that you face in this region. So
yeah, and you're aware there's Ssbci too. So
correct.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Sure.
Okay. So I think we will move forward and continue on this agenda to do a motion. At this point, is there any other questions from the board?
Well, come on, guys, you got to have at least one more question. I know David's got one. I can look at him. It's just burning.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the contract with Lightbox Parent LP for the broadband mapping service?
So moved. This is Cindy Johnson.
Okay.
And I
Second?
would second. This is Derek.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Nay,
Okay.
nay, nay.
Okay, so it's, I think, Amy, if I'm correct, that the motion has passed.
Yes, Madam Committee Chair.
Okay, the next item for action on our agenda for the Service Committee is the review of discussion of proposed amendments to the rules for Chapter 4, and I'm going to turn that over to Brandon.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Committee Chair. Our final broadband topic of the day. So we are looking to approval from the board to produce draft rules and updates to Connect Wyoming program. This is our broadband funding mechanism to providers. The updates are required to match federal guidelines for upcoming funding, both from ARPA 604 as well as the BEAD program. Both of these coming from different sources of funding. We've updated the rules in a way that we believe allows us to take advantage of both of them. Want to emphasize that we are not asking for public comment today in your consideration of these draft rules. We feel it's important to maximize that process and are using the standard rules making procedure, which we are actually not required to, but we believe this is important enough to use that. And there will be a 45-day comment period once this board has approved the draft rules here. And there will be notice out through media and other sources letting people know of that opportunity to comment on those after the draft is approved by you. I will pass it to Elena for explanation of each of the individual changes to the Chapter 4 rules for Connect Wyoming. Thank you.
Oh boy, let's hope I do a better job on this part. These are the, we are calling this Connect Wyoming 2.0 just for reference. What you will see here is the proposed rule changes that involve something more than commas and ands and does. And so I'll just begin our first if you will see if we've added any information, it is underlined. And if there's a cross out, there's a line through what we have deleted. These will go out. This is what will go out for public comment. The first one is on page 4. This is chapter 4, so it's 4-1. The first, we took out the definition explicitly excludes satellite-based infrastructure. Already, first, it's redundant because it's terrestrial, as in earlier part of this what it talks about, which would exclude satellite, but also the Treasury guidelines exclude satellite, and but the deputy director has walked that back a little bit. We thought until we knew exactly what Treasury guidelines were, that this was unnecessary in that. The next proposed rule was the reason that primarily we are redoing these. If you'll see, it was at 25.3 in the crossed out or strike through portion of this. The language that is included in the underline is directly from Treasury guidance. It's 100/20. And just as a side note, in the Treasury rules that we are using for this Connect Wyoming 2.0, there it does not mention unserved and underserved. It just goes to 100 down, 20 up, and that's how we chose this this definition. The third one is proposed a rule. It's underlined, so it's in additions on page 4.2 under section 4. We excluding dial-up internet access service, and then it was legislatively there was within the the Wyoming legislation, they asked for language that would make sure that what was put in the infrastructure was the responsibility of the providers, and that's where this language came from. It's a 15-year for fixed wireless and a 20-year period of maintenance for fiber. The next proposed rule is matching other federal awards. That was just taking out completely. There is some latitude in matching with federal funds in this. We thought we could do that on a case-by-case basis rather than excluding that. The next proposed rule is a strike and underline on page 4.4 under section 10. With projects which develop communities of 2,000 population or less. These priority shall be given to projects that achieve last mile connections. I must ask at this point, has this been up for you guys to see why I have been talking? No, nobody was going to tell me. Would you like me to start over again, Madam Chair, please? No. Good. This one, we took, again, language out of Treasury guidelines about priority. Again, when we develop the weighted system and attaching points to different areas, we will publish in that document where we will prioritize what projects we want to have done. Next proposed rule, strike and underline, is page 4.4, section 10 again. This was making it grammatically more makes sense more grammatically. And then we have had the Attorney General's office, of course, review these rules, and they struck out things that seem to be redundant in there, and those places where we could, when we look at multiple applications in that, that's probably better handled in our guidelines that will be published before this program opens. As you know, the board this will be, all these applications will be reviewed by a committee, which will include perhaps members of this board and the governor's office and others. And so this board will be reviewing these for contracts that will be extended and not, they will not be reviewing them as a fund or do not fund. That will, they'll get a recommendation from the committee. The next proposed rules, I believe that the Attorney General's office took this out. That is, I'm assuming that's because that is what happens with all. We will all do Wyoming Public Meeting Act. This funding came from the Department of Treasury. The other rules, the funding came exclusively from the CARES Act. So we made it comport with where the section of these rules were coming from. We struck this any other certification, but have some other language in that we have become aware of recently, and during the public process system will probably address the certifications that might be required. And the last is an addition to the rules. As you know, that the digital, what we are trying to do is reach out to those people groups and others that are traditionally do not have access for a variety of reasons to broadband. And it is a requirement that there is a low income provision, and this particular language addresses the low income provision, and that will be included in the rules on page 4.5 under section 10 letter J. That is the summary of the changes we are making. Again, the biggest change is the speed change that we have. Again, as I think Brandon went through the timeline. So with that, Madam Chair, I am done.
Okay, Brandon, again, as you said before, that there will be time after this board votes on this, that there will be the 45 days for the public. So Brandon, is there anything else that you would like to add from Elena or any of the other board members?
I do not have anything else, Committee Chairman.
Any board members? Okay, having said that, can I have a motion to approve the proposed amendments to the regular rules for Chapter 4 Connect Wyoming program?
I'll make that motion.
Can I have okay, we have a first and second. Any other discussion? I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Then that motion is carried. Okay, I think I turn it back now to Madam Co-Chair. And Services Committee. Brandon, is there anything else on the Services Committee?
That concludes our business. Appreciate it very much, everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Give me just a second here because I'm trying to scroll back up to the top of my board packet. That was to make sure I know what my next agenda item is here. Okay, perfect. All right, so the next committee that we have on is Investments Committee with Chairman Klein.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank
We'll
you.
move on to more exciting discussions of contracts and rule promulgation. So on that note, sensing we're already a bit behind, I'll defer to Mr. O'Keefe to start with the marquee escrow services contract for the services associated with the WBC loan portfolio.
Right.
Thanks, Chairman Klein, fellow members of the board. Again, Josh Keefe, Finance Manager here at the Business Council. I have a couple of items on the agenda today. The first of which is the existing contract with Marquis Escrow that we are amending and will be going for another fiscal biennium, I should say. I don't know if Bert is on. Bert was going to drive here, but he'll be in here shortly. So I'll just talk through it a little bit. We've had an existing contract with Marquis Escrow for a number of years now. You'll recall that Marquis' kind of scope of work is to basically collect loan payments for both the Challenge Loan Fund as well as the BRC Loan Fund. We have an existing price structure for those types of things where they get $125 per every BRC annual payment that comes in. And then on the Challenge Loan Fund, they earn money based upon a participation servicing fee amount. So it's 0.5% of our loan amount as those payments roll in. Large loan is a little different. They get 0.25% instead of 0.5%. And so that's basically what they do. And enclosed in that whole scope of work is they help us not only keep track of the loans and calculate the interest, but also help us to collect payments and collect the data needed and the loan file pieces of information so that when we get examined by the banking division every single year, that those files are up to date and shows that we're doing that. So you'll see that this contract will be for a total of $350,000 going until June 30th of 2024. And so we have historically, for some reason, done it on a yearly basis. I don't know why, but this will move back to a biennium basis for this contract, as well as increase the amount. And the way that I got to that amount is, should we lend out every single dollar we have, this would still cover all the servicing fee that we would have off the interest that we earn. So I know it looks like a large contract at $350,000. However, I suspect it will not be nearly that large even over the biennium. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Mr. Keith? I don't see any hands raised. I would ask for a motion.
I would move approval. This is Kim.
Ms. DeVore, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Moore. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Seems to have passed unanimously. Moving on, we'll move on to the review and discussion of proposed amendments and new rules for the Wyoming Partnership Challenge Loan Program. Once again, Mr. Keefe.
Right. The next item, now you probably are thinking right off the bat that didn't we see this already? And yes, you have. However, the previous rendition that you saw of the rules was not the clean version. And so lesson learned on my part in that when we have the board adopt the rules, it is good to have them do the clean version. So if you'll recall, we had talked about all of the various changes to the Challenge Loan Program. We eliminated some of the programs that weren't getting utilized. We created the succession financing program, as well as the contract financing program. So with this, really, nothing has changed since the last time that you looked at it. Thanks, Bert. And so, but you can see here, just to refresh your memory, that we increased loan amounts from $1 million to $2.5 million. We also involved the EDOs. And so, and then also eliminated those two programs that were underutilized. So, and then as we move on to the next slide and we talk about the timeline, you can see here, basically what we're asking today is that the board adopt the rules for the challenge loan program. And then that way we can upload the rules packet and really get the final ball rolling on this so that we can hopefully roll this all out and have the program ready to be utilized hopefully by the end of the third quarter. And so I think, again, nothing has changed from the previous version that you looked at, but basically we're asking you to adopt the clean version today and keep going. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Keefe. Any questions? Since this is more administrative, I hope there's not much discussion. Is there a motion to adopt the rules as presented?
Motion to adopt.
Mr. Kenyon and Ms. Tomasi has a second, I believe.
Yes, correct.
Great. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Same sign. The ayes have it. We are moving right along. And Mr. Keefe, I think you are presenting the new rules for the Agricultural Processing Revenue Bond Program.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the next item is the Ag Bond Processing Program. This came out of Senate File 9 in this last legislative session. The goal was to try and provide another financing tool for agricultural producers to basically add value to their raw product and further market their product that they're growing. And so, probably the first example that folks maybe think of is beef processing. Yes, that would qualify in this program. Maybe it's another one that got brought up during the legislature was a sugar beet factory kind of thing. So that would also qualify. So it really is just trying to provide more methods to help the agricultural industry. And so you'll see the timeline here. We did take some public comment earlier in the year. We had 3 of them, one from a legislator, one from Mr. Magagna at the Stock Growers Association, as well as another one that said somebody would be willing to help however they could. So I think all of those comments were taken into consideration as we were drafting the rules with the AG's office earlier this month. And so basically what we're asking for now today is to approve these draft rules. And then we will submit again to the governor's office at the end of the month. And then we will go through, as you heard Brandon reference earlier, the standard rulemaking process where we'll have a 45-day public comment period, and then hope to bring these back to you in September after the comment period has closed and formally adopt these rules. So, with these, it's not too long. I believe they're about 6 pages worth of ag bonding rules. The majority of, and the way that the role, I should say, the role of the Business Council in this is to try and help companies kind of structure the deal or gather all the stuff that they may need. And then the allocation of the bonding actually comes from the SLID board. So it follows an identical process to the BRC program. And so we'll still have to get an AG opinion, all of those things to make sure that it is conforming, but the SLID folks have the final say on whether the bonds get allocated or not. And so, and then once that happens, then the bonds would have to go to market, use some kind of a broker to market the bonds, whether an investment bank decides to buy them all or if they sell them. And so that's, we really just kind of play probably the first half of the process in issuing a bond in this, trying to find good projects that may qualify and having the state being willing to allocate those bonds towards the project. So I know it seems kind of convoluted at the moment, and again, these are just draft rules. And so we'll see if there are any further comments this summer. And we'll definitely consider those in our final adoption, make sure any concerns get addressed. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. So.
Thank you, Mr. Keefe. Any questions? I know there was a good discussion in our committee meeting on this. And so we've kicked it around. I think there's some concern about how well utilized the program may be, but I think we'll see. Is that a question from Chuck? I see something in chat now. Okay. I would ask for a motion to approve the draft rules.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Aaron's, and I didn't catch the second.
Law.
Mr. Law, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The draft rules are approved. We'll move to our last item for the committee, the review and discussion of proposed new rules for Wyoming's Ssbci Venture Capital Program. Mr. Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Committee Chairman. So I'll start and go over something very similar to what Mr. Keefe went over. The rules process, it's going to be very similar to what you saw for the ag bonds and for broadband. We are doing the full rulemaking process and taking public comment on these as well. The only difference I'll point out on this one is the third bullet. So after we did that early public comment and started drafting, we have had a round of reviews with funders and founders and the investments committee to get more feedback on these rules. And so what you see in the board packet starting on page 99 is all of those revisions included already. So after today, we'll ask for your consideration of approving these drafts. Again, it goes to the governor's office. We've got that 45-day comment period and hope to bring these back on the September board meeting. And then once that's done, it'll be uploaded to the Wyoming Agency Rules System, or WARS. And then there's a 75-day signing period after that, hoping to have these live sometime in November, probably late November. So these will be rules that aren't state legislated. These are federal rules. This is a federal program for the State Small Business Credit Initiative. It was enacted with the American Rescue Plan Act. And this is the second version, much like Connect Wyoming is 2.0, Ssbci, this is a 2.0 as well. These are new rules, and they're to help us ensure consistency with our process and review and our funding determinations for both of the Wyoming Venture Funds and Wyoming Venture Direct programs. So there's two programs underneath this set of rules. So I'll just walk through some of the highlights here real quick. So the big bullets here, investments that are less than 2 million will be determined by staff. Investments between 2 and 5 million is the cap, will be determined by an Ssbci committee. That committee does consist of an additional 2 members from the board co-chair and the investments committee chairman. We've got Wyoming Headquarters is a requirement on here, as well as less than 200 employees. I'll define Wyoming Headquarters a little bit more here in the next slide. Businesses must remain or relocate to Wyoming for at least 1 year post-investment. These just from the co-investment side, they will need to have a lead investor and willingness to share current diligence. All of the applicants, whether it's for the funds or the co-investment, will be set up with EFT to the Wyoming State Auditor's Office to make sure the funds are transferred quickly. And then the caps, like I mentioned, $5 million max investment round size, and this is both for investments from a fund or direct co-investments, have to be 20 million or less. And then the portion from the state using these Ssbci funds has to be less than half of the total investment in any of these, whether it's the fund or whether it's a direct co-investment. And if they're combined, it still has to be less than half. And then the application review process and reporting are all outlined in here and covered by the additional layer of federal treasury guidance on this. So let's take one quick look and look at the Wyoming headquartered in the way we have it defined right now in rule. So you can be headquartered in Wyoming, that's kind of the overarching umbrella, or have principal operations in Wyoming, or have at least 60% of the equity of the business owned by residents of Wyoming, or have at least 60% of the employees employed in Wyoming, or have committed in writing to relocate and fulfill one of those above requirements in order to meet this. And so that's the way it's defined today. And I would be happy to answer any questions on the rules for Ssbci or any other questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Adam?
Alex, I don't know if you, yep, cool. Bert, just out of curiosity, the conversation about how we'll work with funds of funds or cap tables, all of that kind of stuff, do we see that coming out in rules? Is that something that we're just going to work internally or with each individual fund that we work with as we go through that process? I just wasn't sure it wasn't outlined in here. And so I didn't know if that would be something that we would be coming at later or how that was going to work.
So some of that will be coming later. It won't be defined in rule. There is a piece to this that we haven't totally worked out, which is we will need a brokerage account, and either us as the business council or working through the treasurer's office to get a brokerage account to be able to turn when a company gets acquired or goes public or whatever, to turn those shares and equity we have into dollars to be able to recycle those funds back into the account.
Okay, perfect. So more to come on those aspects of it in conversation.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Adam? I would just note, once again, there was a good discussion at the committee on this, a lot of questions and back and forth. And then also I'd be remiss if I didn't note that I think some of the workshops on, how this program might work were also very helpful to not just the board, but members of the public. So thanks for arranging those, putting it together. This is a little bit of new territory for us, but pretty excited about the possibility and what it can do. And I think kudos to the staff for all the input and taking the time to, I think, find that happy medium between protecting the best interests of Wyoming and also just, recognizing that these are growth companies that can't be overly encumbered. And so there's a fine line we need to ride there. But I think you did a really nice job. So appreciate that. I would ask for a motion to adopt the draft rules.
I would motion. This is Kim.
Ms. DeVore. Is there a second?
This is Derek.
Second.
Mr. Smith has a second. Any further discussion? None? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. I'll defer to you, Madam Co-Chair.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. And I just wanted to know what Alex said on kudos to Bert and the team and the efforts in getting all of us a thorough understanding of this venture capital process as we've gone through the workshops, as well as putting together the rules with such balance. I think that's just key to all of the interests. So, all right. With that, we will keep moving along, and I will now pass it over to Ms. Tomasi to go through the strategy and execution standing committee items.
Thank you, Erin. You'll all be happy to hear our committee meeting. We went through everything very thoroughly, but it was quick. So maybe that's an indication of how our presentation today will go. And so I will turn this over to Sarah. We have two different contracts to talk about, and she will explain those. Either Sarah or Amy, I'm not sure which one is on right now.
Thank you, Ms. Committee Chair. We're both on. I'm Sarah Fitzgerald. Amy Quick, our strategic communications lead, is also on, and she'll go through 2 contracts with you today. Like Kathy said, we did have a good discussion in committee about these contracts. It was a quick discussion only because they are 2 extensions of contracts with 2 providers that we have really good relationships with. And so with that, I will ask Amy to talk a little bit more detail about those contracts.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning, committee chair and board of directors. Yeah, just as Sarah said, these are 2 pretty streamlined contracts. The first one is with AdBay, doing business as Callan Marketing Solutions. This is just an extension, both in amount and in time. We're extending it to the end of June for our next fiscal year to continue our relationship with Callan. They are the agency that helped us relaunch our website at the end of last year. And so this contract is continuing that work to build out phase 2 and phase 3. We've got a big tick list of things that we want to accomplish to make the functionality and our website more robust, really meet our needs going forward. Then we had a great, relationship working with them initially, and they continue to. We do have some money existing in the existing contract, so we are continuing to work on things as they come up. And then once this is executed, we'll really dive into phase 2 and some more of that enhanced functionality. And I'm happy to answer any questions about this contract.
So does anybody have any questions for Amy or Sarah? Hearing none.
Oop, you went muted, Kathy.
Well, sorry, I usually don't do that, but do I hear a motion to accept this contract?
So moved.
Moved.
Seconded.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so the motion passes. Okay, I'll pass it back to Amy and Sarah and see what our next is with 3 Elephant, who we have heard from before. So Sarah, Amy?
Sure, I can continue along. So yeah, as again, similar to Callan, this is it's actually a new contract because we're adding a few items to it in addition to additional funding and extending it to the end of the next fiscal year, June 30th, 2024. We have been working with 3 Elephant Public Relations. They are a strategic communications company, which fits really well into my role. They've become really an extension of our team and a really valuable partner that I've been working with for the last 6 months or so. This contract, again, just extends that. We are going to include some video and photography assets, and also really focusing in the next couple of years. Right now we're working on strategy summary and building that out to be more robust and very detailed in our strategic communications plan. And so, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them about this contract, but it is just continuing that relationship with a valuable partner.
Does anybody have any questions for Amy?
I do, Kathy.
Oh, sorry, Kim. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. And actually, I totally lied. I don't have a question, but I do have a statement for Amy and actually the whole staff and any new board members. And Aaron, I apologize. I'm a past chair thumping, but quite a few years ago, and Sarah will remember this, when we developed our strategy, a huge component of our strategy was to improve and really enhance and hone in on our communications. And this contract, along with the previous contract with AdBay, are perfect examples. And more importantly, putting Amy Quick in this role is a massive example of we are 1,000 light years ahead of where we were a few years ago. And I am just really proud of all of you. And the fact that this is still a core part of that strategy, it really has made a huge difference in the awareness of what we do at Business Council and our outreach to legislators and partners. So I'm happy to approve these. Plus, these are Wyoming companies. So rather than us trying to go become experts in all of these areas, we put someone like Amy Quick in charge of it, who is an expert herself. And then we contract with Wyoming companies who do this for a living every day. So I'm super proud of today versus where we sat years ago. So, okay, I'm off my thumping, sorry.
No, thank you, Kim. I think that the impact that has happened because of Amy's switching over to this position and because of these contracts is very, very strong. So I'm happy you stressed that. Thank you. Any comments or questions?
I would just say thank you and watch out. There's more to come. We have some big plans.
Yay. Okay, great. So hearing no further discussion, do I hear a motion to accept the contract with 3 Elephant?
So moved.
I'll second that, Kathy.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so the motion passes and that's all we have.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Kathy. All right. Last but not least of our committees is the Operations Committee, Mr. Arns. And so I will pass it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair and members of the board. We have one item for the board's consideration today, and it happens to be a contract, more specifically an amendment to an existing contract with Wave Interactive. So for that, I'll turn it over to Amy.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Committee Chair and members of the board. So we do have one amendment to bring forward to the board today, and I'm co-presenting with Ben Peterson, our IT manager. And so we, you may recall that we actually, we do use Salesforce at the Business Council, and we used it heavily in the business relief programs. To continue to use Salesforce and to look at other ways to maximize our internal efficiency and to better support and strengthen our internal databases of information, we are interested in continuing to use more advanced features in Salesforce. In order to do that, we did actually put out an RFP in November of 2021 for Salesforce development and integration services. And we received 3 responses back to that RFP. None of those responses, unfortunately, were from in-state Wyoming companies, but we did have great responses, high quality responses from the 3 who did respond. Through that RFP process, we actually entered into a $25,000 contract with Wave Interactive based out of Omaha, Nebraska in January of 2022. We entered into just a little under a 5-month contract with Wave for $25,000 to get us started and to develop that relationship. We are very pleased with the relationship and the work that Wave is doing for us in the Salesforce environment, and we are looking to amend the contract and extend the date of services through June 30th, 2024, and add $160,000 to the contract. And just so you're aware also, we do have weekly meetings with Wave. Ben Peterson is leading those meetings, and then Bert, Adam, and I join those meetings also. And we're continuing to stay tightly connected. We have a project plan list with them that we've developed. and are working through that list and based on priority. So it's a good relationship. It's been, we've seen good things from it, and we want to continue those services. Ben, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think it's all spelled out there. And if there are any questions or details, just feel free to throw the questions out.
So, Mr. Committee Chair, that's kind of the summary of the contract and the amendment that we're proposing for consideration.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Ben. So we had a good discussion on this in our committee, and believe it's proactive, number one, in terms of making sure we're prepared for some things in our future. And we need to be smart about when a contractor makes sense versus an employee. And in this case, you have some pretty specialized work that needs done in a specific scope of work that seems to make a contractor make sense. So are there any questions from anyone on the board? Mr. Klein, I see your hand up.
Sure, Mr. Chair. Just since I wasn't in the committee meeting, and just showing maybe my ignorance, is this designed to make it easier to apply for some of our programs by the general public and just kind of streamline those processes? I know that we had a lot of exposure to some really quick work done in Salesforce to make the emergency grants available during the impacts of COVID, but is this designed to, I think, just make the whole process easier for people to put in their applications, and then on the back end for staff to review them and maybe even score them and grade them?
Yes, Mr. Klein and Mr. Committee Chair, I can take that question. So the answer to your question, Mr. Klein, is yes. So we did use Salesforce in the business relief programs for the application, and that was actually where the application was built. We do also use Salesforce for other things like managing our grants, our BRC awards. We do a lot of other behind the scenes reporting, and we're looking to use it for more. In addition, we've got Ssbci, which you all just heard about, that we'll be looking to take applications for, as well as Connect Wyoming 2.0. And we would love to utilize Salesforce for both of those.
Thank you.
Good. Are there any other questions? Not seeing any. So it was the staff and the committee recommendation to approve the amendment to the contract, and we'd entertain a motion to do so.
This is Chuck. I would so move.
Chuck.
Kathy.
Second.
Got Kathy on the second there. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes. Madam Co-Chair, that concludes our report.
Perfect. Okay, so that wraps up all of the items on our agenda. Just a couple of things just to note is standing committee meetings during the quarter. Those are listed there. And our next regular board meeting will be September 7th through 8th, and we will actually be in person in Rock Springs. So looking forward to seeing everybody in person. So, all right. And if I have a motion to adjourn, we'll take that and wrap up for the day.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
And I'll second.
Great. I have a motion and a second to adjourn our special committee meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And all of those opposed can hang on and just meet by yourself. All right, perfect. Thank you all so much for your work today and your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.